Right now, right here on this video, as you're watching today, I am going to help some people stop smoking. So who will that be? Well, maybe it'll be you. I guess we'll see. So how am I going to do this? Well, first let me tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to hypnotize you. In fact, I'm the opposite of a hypnotist. And if you followed me over the past 20 years, then you know what I have to say about that. Instead, I'm going to show you the opposite. I'm going to show you how to wake up. Now, I'm not going to be the one to wake you up, but I am going to show you how it's done. And if you smoke, and if you want to stop, and if you do as I ask, you will be able to stop smoking, and you'll never have to go back to it. The problem is not everyone wants to wake up because they don't think they're asleep. They're not aware that they're unconscious, and you might be offended by me even suggesting such a thing. But bear with me because I think you'll be surprised to learn just what I mean by that. What I mean by being asleep, what I mean by waking up. It might not be what you think. And as far as smoking, it goes all the way to why you started in the first place. If you ask a smoker, ask them why they started smoking, they will always cite the same basic reason. They were young and they wanted to be cool, right? That's the standard answer. Their friends smoked and they wanted to feel a part of. Okay, now there's something there, but there's more. There's also why they can't stop, and those two connect. And when I help make that connection for you, you're on your way. They'll also admit that they're physically addicted, but that's not why they can't stop. There's another reason. It's way more powerful than just a physical dependency idea. If you smoke, the reason you don't stop is directly related to why you started. And we're going to look at that in a minute. So brace yourself. Okay, you might not like it. I remember when I started smoking, I actually wanted to be a smoker desperately. All the kids I admired smoked. They got drunk and they smoked. Some of them even took harder drugs. They dropped acid, they smoked pot, they took downers, they had Seconal and Tuinol, the very big drugs back then, even in grammar school, even in Catholic school, at least the one I went to in the Bronx in New York City. I never took any of those drugs. I was not one to get sedated or I didn't want to trip. I didn't want any hallucinogenic experiences like that. But still, I hadn't developed much of a sense of worth, at least a value that I had earned for myself. Only what my mother and my grandmother told me. They were always telling me how wonderful I was and how handsome I was and how successful I was going to be. And they put me on a pedestal. So I would go out into the world and not everyone agreed with my mother or my grandmother. So there was a conflict. And so like a lot of the other kids my age who had no realistic view of themselves or any real sense of worth, I tried to create some. I tried to create some self-generated esteem, acting and doing things that it was basically just to get the support of my peers, the other kids. I wanted to be liked, right? I wanted approval that I didn't deserve. I was not a stellar student. I was a B student. I wasn't athletic. I didn't play any musical instruments. Just no accomplishments, really. And one of the things I did do for approval was cigarettes. And the kids liked it. And they liked me because I smoked. I specifically remember trying to smoke whenever I could, even when I was alone. I wanted to actually develop the addiction that everyone said that they suffered with. I wanted those withdrawal symptoms. And if I didn't have a cigarette, finally it started to kick in. And I felt that I belonged. I did get the addiction. I worked very hard at it. It took months. But that's not all. Because then to top it off, there was something else. I was in the 8th grade. It was Catholic school, elementary school in the Bronx. I had a crush on a 14-year-old Puerto Rican girl in my class. Purely physical attraction, completely unrequited. And she smoked Newports, Newport box. And so I began to smoke Newports. What a coincidence, right? I got her attention. She used to grub cigarettes, her own brand, the Newports, from me every day after class. And in return, I got to walk her home every day. And I would walk this girl home every single day after school. And she would, do you have a cigarette? Sure, I got a Newport. Oh, how nice. And I got to be with her every single day, right? That was the extent of my game. I was a real ladies' man, as you can tell. And then the 8th grade ended. No more walking her home. I never saw her again. I couldn't tell you today if she was dead or alive. But I carried that smoking the Newports straight into high school. Now, on the surface, this might seem like some innocent adolescent rite of passage, right? Well, if you think about it, not so innocent, really. Young boy, smitten with a girl, tried to impress the girl, loses the girl. There's really something much more serious going on here, something unworldly. And if you smoke, it went on with you too. And if you can't stop, it's still going on. It's underlying. We have to get to that. It's more than just appearing cool. People who start smoking early, they want to be cool, they want to be accepted by somebody. That's a craving. That's craving somebody's approval. It's a need. But where does the need come from? The need for someone's approval. How do they get that? And what does getting the approval do to the human condition? It changes it. You transform from one state of existence to another. You become a different person. You make different choices. You make choices that have completely different results. You're existing on a different timeline than had you never begun using nicotine. Now we're getting to a cause of smoking. You see, it is metaphysical. This is where I come in. This is how I can help, very simply. I talk about consciousness. I talk about mindful awareness. Now, this has nothing to do with religions or Eastern philosophies and all that New Age crap. This is not what your storefront yoga instructor tells you about, okay? This is not some crazy life coach theory, okay? No external motivators, not me, not anyone. I'm talking about truth from within. I'm also not talking about self-awareness. That's coming. But before that, right before you can become truly self-aware, there's another kind of awareness. It's a state of consciousness that if you're a nicotine addict, if you're addicted to smoking, then you don't know what it is. You don't experience it. You are in chemical denial, even if you don't think that you are. But you can change very quickly, very simply. It isn't complicated at all. It's so simple. It's so easy. There's no effort. Now, before I show you this, there's something else I want you to know. Something that's a complete opposite of what you've been told about nicotine addiction. You've been told that smoking, nicotine, is the hardest drug to kick, right? How people who give up crack or alcohol or even heroin, they can do that before they can stop smoking. The classic excuse is that nicotine is somehow more addictive than any other drug. Not true. Wrong, wrong, wrong. I work with hardcore drug addicts, alcoholics, people with terrible issues, and I've been doing it for a very long time, for decades. I'm helping them get over their substance abuse issues, and I'm going to tell you that nicotine addiction is the easiest of them all. Easiest addiction to kick, the easiest drug to kick when it's approached correctly. The reason people think it's the opposite is because they won't come to grips with the real cause. And that is what I mean to do with you here today, right now in this short video. It's an introduction to the cause. And if you do as I ask, you'll wake up in a way that's not otherwise possible, and you won't ever smoke again. Not if you don't want to. No joke. You'll be able to give it up. You'll have the power to do it. Not willpower, a different kind of power. A power that comes from somewhere else. Not your will. Getting interesting now? Okay, stay with me. One thing I never do when helping someone stop smoking is try to scare them with morbid stats. I'm not going to beg. I'm not going to plead. I'm not going to give any rationale at all. Rationale doesn't help. You can't rationalize out of a bad habit like that. There are plenty of that already around. You can go on the internet. You can look at scary pictures of black lungs and all the stats and all the mortality rates. You've already seen all that. I know. And the scary stats are just not useful. I'm not going to scare you or try to dissuade you from smoking. Because even those, it just doesn't work. You still cannot stop. You cannot stop lighting up. You can't stop firing that vape or the Juul or puffing cigars or whatever it is. Water pipe, the hookah, whatever. You enter smoking cultures. The only thing that knowing the morbid stories does is make you feel worse about not being able to stop. As a matter of fact, the worse you feel about smoking, the more you resent your habit, the more you don't like yourself for smoking, the more you're going to want to smoke. So forget about being scared smokeless. Fear is not a motivator. It just doesn't work. When it comes to an obsession like this, fear is not going to help. You need to lose the fear, not use the fear. So forget statistics. There are even statistics that you can use as an excuse to keep smoking. You've heard people compare the dangers of smoking with the odds of being struck by lightning, right? Or being in a fatal car accident, or drowning in a pool, or getting bit by a dog. Really? Is that what you're worried about? You're worried about the danger of dying from smoking? If you want to stop smoking, and your motivation is that you don't want to die from it, I probably can't help you. I'm not going to be able to work with that. But if you can see, or at least be willing to see, that the reason you smoke is a flaw in your state of being, and you would like to become a better person, if you can see that your smoking is a symptom of something inside, some brokenness inside you, and it's not your choice, I can most definitely help you starting today. I know that some of you watching this right now have no intention of quitting. Okay. I know that you're here to evaluate me. You're here to see what I'm doing wrong and to get angry or whatever. I'm happy to entertain you. But you never know. Maybe I can convert a few of you too. Don't go away mad. And there are certain types who, they're just looking to justify their smoking, like it's their choice, like it isn't an addiction. I can stop anytime I want. I just don't want to. Really? You think you smoke because you want to? You think you enjoy it? Okay, granted. Okay, there is some enjoyment. That's your aim in life. And then you're right. Nicotine helps you find a little joy, calms you down. It helps you relax. You become addicted to the pleasure, to the feeling of rightness. Why? Because there's something wrong inside you. Your rightness, your perception of rightness, goes to the wrongness. And this is the part you're not going to like. No one wants to know that they're wrong. No one wants to hear me say it. But if there wasn't something wrong in you, you'd never need to feel right. And if you smoke, you use the chemical to feel right, to prevent you from seeing something about yourself that you don't want to see. And that's exactly why you continue to smoke. You need the pleasure. You need to numb the pain of the wrong, to feel right. And nicotine supplies that. That's what all antidepressant drugs do. They take away the pain of wrongness. It's called anxiety. And wrongness gets worse under the numbness. Your conscience is anesthetized. Nicotine is an antidepressant. It's an anti-anxiety, over-the-counter drug. It stimulates the release of the same neurotransmitters that prescription drugs do. It manipulates the serotonin and the dopamine and the norepinephrine, except you don't need a prescription for it. You don't need a doctor to write it. You write it yourself. You go out and buy a pack of cigarettes or a Juul or whatever it is you buy. And these are all pleasure center, reward bundle, biochemical activators. When you take nicotine, you are self-pleasuring. Do you know that the number one top prescribed smoking cessation medication is Wellbutrin? It's an antidepressant. That's true. If you smoke, you're addicted to overcoming an emotional undercurrent, depression. You've never been diagnosed with it, with depression? Okay, we'll call it chronic malaise, or call it persistent restlessness, irritability, discontentment. Discontentment that haunts you, that's anxiety. And then that's followed by fear, sometimes even shame. Each of these are just flavors of one thing. One thing, resentment. Resent yourself, judge others. You're playing God. You might even keep it suppressed. You could keep it hidden under a nice grin or a humorous, outgoing personality or even a mantle of intellect. All compensations. You aren't genuine. You aren't who you think you are. Nicotine helps you recreate yourself in the image of something that's not you. And if you smoke, you're drugged chemically. You've altered your daily affairs and you are living an artificial life. You're an artificial being, a phony. I have another video on this very subject. Smokers are not real people. You can go look it up on YouTube. Look that up. It tells more about the nicotine addicts. They're not real. They're liars. And you're stuck, man. You're stuck in the alternate reality, influenced by chemicals. Now, there's a way out. There is a solution for this. And you might ask, well, how the hell are you going to help me then? Well, first what I do is I reveal why it is that you smoke in the first place. And then I explain how it happens. It's something that you've never been shown before. But once you see it, many of you are going to be able to stop. Maybe even today, if you want to. The understanding triggers the release. Now, if you don't want to, that's no problem. Some of you are going to hear this and you're going to run for the hills the moment I say it. Well, that's too bad for you then. But if you watch this and if you hear me, and if something I say, if my voice rings true inside you, with some truth and some understanding of what I'm about to tell you, and if you smoke and you want to stop, you will be able to stop. Just hear my voice. Hear what I say. I will show you how. You won't need me. You won't need to take any classes. You won't need to submit your will over to some hypnotist who only gives you a temporary relief anyway. No willful modification tricks. Behavior modification. They don't go to the source. The reason you smoke, the underlying cause. Now, this can come as a bit of a shock, okay? I'm telling you, some of you are going to hear this. You're going to say, the hell with that. You'd rather smoke. I get it. Listen, if that happens, if it does, there's no reason for us to part enemies. Just come back another time, maybe. But the cause and the solution are both metaphysical. And this is going to frighten some people. Can't help that. Don't want to help that. But others of you are going to hear this and you'll experience a sense of hope. And that hope will turn into confidence. And that confidence is a powerful new attitude. And that'll actually help you stop smoking right now. And if not now, then soon. But it'll be like a breath of fresh air. The very sound of the words will ring in your ears and your soul, truth, and you will stop smoking, maybe even right now during this video. So let's go. Here's the information you need to stop smoking forever. Take it or leave it. I'm going to give it to you. The reason that you developed an addiction to nicotine goes back to when you were first born. Now, this is not Freudian psychology, no general psychology principles here. Those can be interesting, but what I'm talking about is way beyond that. This goes to a metaphysical plane. It goes to your relationship with the realm of the world that you entered as you were born and then from the one that you came from. Now, you were born into this world. It was imperfect. It was unjust, maybe a little cruel. It lacked love, and you were tempted to become upset. An impatient mother, perhaps, an absentee father, whatever it was, whatever it is, whoever it was. No one showed you how to meet the pressure. No one showed you how to meet the temptation, the stress. And there were things in the world that you saw, things that you weren't equipped to experience. You were innocent, but you became stressed emotionally. And another way of saying that is that you became angry. And what really happened is that anger got inside of you, a negative energy. You couldn't have helped it. It got into you through the world, through the stress of what you saw, what upset you, who upset you. Someone didn't protect you from that. Your parents have failed. I'm sorry. I'm not saying it's their fault. It's your fault for going this long that way. And back then, once your parents failed you, you judged them. You judged them for their weaknesses, along with judging the world. And that judgment always turns into anxiety because it's playing God. You aren't God. And so there's a conflict. And so you became anxious. You can't live that way. You can't live in an anxious, excited state that way. So you discovered certain substances and certain behaviors that would make you feel better. Food, eating, sexual stimulation, mostly those. But also approval of teachers, parents, friends. All of these things did things in the brain that help you forget the pain that you were in. And one of the things you picked up that brought you the relief, that brought you the pleasure, was nicotine. First, the smoking behavior, joining the smoking culture, that brought you the status you wanted amongst your peers, the approval. You needed that. You got that. You trained yourself into it, even though it didn't taste very good. Come on, nicotine doesn't taste good. But then it also brought the relief as a drug, as an antidepressant drug. Very powerful psychoactive chemical. And when you dose up your body with nicotine, one cigarette gives you about, it's like somewhere between a milligram and a half or a milligram, somewhere between a milligram and 2 milligrams of nicotine. And that drug permeates the blood-brain barrier. It interacts with the neurotransmitters in your brain as an antidepressant. If you smoke, you're on antidepressants. You're medicated. And once you get that relief, the chemical effect that the nicotine has in the brain, you cannot stop. Because if you stop, it would mean looking at what you've done. It would mean to face the original agony in the second place for having been resentful in the first place. You see? The anxiety would catch up with you. The pain would come back. But you won't face it. And so now you're obliged. You're obliged to keep it up. You become obsessed with the feeling that you're right. Feeling better. Getting your nicotine fix becomes a compulsion. There's no ability to control it. You can't stop. That's it. You're enslaved to the relief. Physically to the chemical, but emotionally to the relief. And it all goes back to anger, and you cannot stop, not even if you wanted to. It's just that simple. Now, if you could find a way to get free of that anger, free of that original resentment and master resentment, and realize forgiveness and being forgiven and just what that really means, then the need for the nicotine would just fall away. No effort, no need for it, as evidenced by your anxiety. It'll be completely gone. You'd be able to stop smoking, and you'd feel right with nothing more than just a few withdrawal side effects that are no worse than having a cold. You can get over a cold. You do that all the time. You do that every winter, right? So you want to do this? Go to my website. If you're already on my website, just go to the non-contemplative meditation page. There's a link right on the first page. Soon there's going to be a stop smoking link too, so you can look for that. Just follow the directions. It's easy. It's free. There's no charge. Look, I know how to do this like no one else you know. I know how you can be rid of the need to smoke. Let me help you.